LNG carriers, also known as liquefied natural gas carriers. This is a type of ship which is designed to transport natural gas over long distances across the world. This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. Natural gas is a fossil fuel energy source that can be found under the surface of the Earth. When this gas is cooled down to -162 degrees Celsius, it becomes liquid, and the volume reduces by about 600 times. This process is liquefaction. So if this ship had to carry this volume of gas in its gas state, the containment tanks would have been this big. LNG is not blue like in this animation. In reality, it actually has no color. LNG carriers are not some small ships. They can be longer than an aircraft carrier. Today, we'll cover the two most popular design types in the industry, Moss type and membrane type, and another very advanced type but not widely used, SPB. First, let's see the overview of the ship's layout. This is the engine room. Fuel tanks. Modern LNG carriers have dual fuel systems in which they use liquid fuel stored in these tanks to power up the engine, or they can also use boil-off gas from its cargo tanks. Lubricant oil tanks. Gas oil tanks. These tanks are for fresh water, distilled water, and feed water. Surrounding the hull are water ballast tanks, where the ship pumps seawater inside these tanks to keep the ship stabilized when the cargo is not loaded. Any space between tanks are cofferdams. They prevent liquids from leaking into other tanks. Steering compartment. Reliquefaction plant. Lifeboats. Accommodation for crew members. Ship bridge. Chain locker. Four-peak dry tank. Not all LNG carriers have the exact same design. This is just one example. The Moss type can be easily recognized by its spherical tanks. Before looking into this design, let me introduce to you VPN by Private Internet Access. When you're browsing the internet, your personal information is exposed, just like walking on an open road and everyone can see it. Private Internet Access will turn that road into a private tunnel, and unwanted people cannot see what's inside. Now your information is kept private and safe. More than that, you can also change your geolocation to another country to access restricted content. Private Internet Access is extremely easy to use and works on all devices. Using my link below to get an 83% discount, piavpn.com/3d. All types of LNG carriers are required to have double hulls. This is an outer hull, and this is an inner hull. The space in between is water ballast tanks. The double hull design helps to protect the tanks and cargo inside in case of collision. In Moss type, the spherical tanks are independent. They are not a part of the ship's hull. Instead, they are supported by a supporting skirt made of high tensile steel. This is the primary barrier made of aluminum alloy. Insulation layer made of polyurethane or polystyrene foam. Steel weatherproof cover on top. Dripping tray. It is used to collect and contain liquid leaks. The empty space here is called the void space and is filled with nitrogen for fire prevention and thermal insulation. Membrane type tanks. This design has its advantages over spherical tanks for cargo capacity. The tank is more rectangular-like and consists of several layers. Primary barriers and secondary barrier are made of stainless steel or Invar, inner hull of the ship. The spaces in between are for insulation using plywood boxes filled with polite. The LNG tanks are directly integrated into the ship's hull. This integration results in better space utilization as the tanks fit the shape of the ship's hull more efficiently. This is the picture inside of a membrane tank. SPB tanks. This type of design makes an LNG carrier look a lot like an oil tanker. The cargo tanks are inside the hull, but the tanks are independent. They are not part of the ship's hull. SPB tank divides the tank into 4 spaces using tight bulkhead and swash bulkhead. The tanks are built with girders for sloshing resistance. This design is more advanced than the moss and membrane type, but not very popular because of the high cost of construction and low demand by ship operators. There are more designs of LNG carriers, such as Type C cylindrical, bilobe, and trilobe cargo tanks, but those are also not widely used in the industry. Let's see how LNG is loaded into the tanks. This is the central column. Inside the column, there are pipes, filling line, discharge lines, spray line. There are pumps at the bottom of the discharge lines and spray line. LNG is loaded into the tank using this filling line. However, LNG can't just be loaded right away. Before loading LNG, there might be humid air inside the tanks. Humid air contains water and will form ice. To avoid this, it needs to be displaced by dry air. This is a dry and inert gas plant. Dry air is introduced to the bottom of the tank through the filling line. Humid air escapes to the atmosphere via the vent mast. All air in general needs to be purged from the system to prevent formation of flammable mixtures. Air is replaced with inert gas. Inert gas contains freezable gas such as carbon dioxide and needs to be replaced with warm LNG vapor using the spray nozzles. The LNG vapor is lighter than the inert gas, so it stays on top and pushes the inert gas down. The inert gas exhausted back up to the filling line and then be vented out via the vent mast. Now the cargo tank has only LNG vapor and no other mixtures. The cargo tank needs to be cooled down before loading to avoid thermal stress. The spray nozzles spray cold LNG to cool down the tank. The safe speed of cooling down is lowered down by 9 degrees Celsius per hour until the equatorial region reaches at least -115 degrees Celsius. Now the LNG can enter through the filling line. LNG spraying continues if needed. LNG won't be filling up all the way in the tank. It is safe to have some space left for vapor and pressure. During the voyage, the external heat passing through the tank insulation causing LNG to boil off. This is called BOG. To prevent BOG from building up too much pressure inside the tank, it can be utilized as a source of fuel to power up the engine. If there are too much BOG, the spray line can pump cold LNG from the bottom of the tank and spray it from the top to cool down the BOG. In cases of ship being moored and still have to keep LNG inside for whatever reason, BOG will be passed through the reliquefaction plant, cool down and turn into liquid state, then be sent back to the cargo tank. LNG is unloaded at the destination. The ship goes back to the LNG production shore and the whole process repeats. Thank you for watching. If you have anything to add, please leave a comment below. My name is Lucius. I will see you in the next video.